Hello. All right. Yes, it's live. I pushed the button. I was a minute late. That's my fault. My robot didn't remind me. But what I really hope is that all of you are actually out there and you are not robots. You know, I go to plenty of Zoom meetings, and sometimes people bring their robots to the Zoom meeting these days, and the robots take notes, and that is all a fantastic thing. But occasionally, only the robots come. And then my conversation is just not so interesting. So I want to make sure all of you are not robots and that you're here ready to talk to me about the 3 laws of AI, which is what I'm going to be covering here in this Squirrel Squadron free live stream. And while people come in and I see people arriving and appearing, I'm going to ask 2 things. First, could you just say, hi, I'm not a robot? And maybe tell me where you're coming in from. We had signups from Brazil and Australia and UK and Europe and all over. So just say hi, make sure I know that I'm not only talking to robots today. And I'll give a little bit of an intro while people are joining and finding us. And of course, also hello to those of you watching on a recording. Some of the folks in faraway places this may not be a great time for them in their time zone. So glad to always have people watching us on the recording, and that could happen years from now because, of course, we put all these recordings on the forum. Hi, Moritz is here. Excellent. I know where Moritz is, and Simon's here. He's not a robot. Excellent. I'm pleased to see it. Good stuff. So let me just give a very brief introduction for people who might have just come along to this on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, and they're like, who the heck is this? I'm Squirrel. I'm a consultant and an expert in making tech teams insanely profitable. And I love doing that every day. I've been doing that all day today, and I'll do it all day tomorrow. And as I'm doing that, I'm giving a lot of advice on AI, which is what I'm going to distill for you here today and probably provoke some of you, and you'll disagree with me, and that's very good. A place that I do a lot of disagreeing, and Laura's going to put up a little sign for this now, is the Squirrel Squadron Forum. The Squirrel Squadron is my community. We're closing in on 3,000 now. Executives around the world. There's a forum where people are discussing 24 hours a day. There were just a flurry of posts on all different topics I saw. I need to respond to those later. And we have discussions on all kinds of interesting things. Laura's put up a little list of those. And you can come in and ask any kind of question anytime. And you'll get answers that are intelligent and thoughtful from people you might not have thought, because the squadron is all about tech and non-tech people working together. And I don't know any other community like that. I know plenty of communities for CFOs and for CMOs and for CTOs, but nothing for C anything O, which is what we're all about, is making sure executives who are interested in making tech profitable, but might not be techies, or who are but have frustrations with those crazy non-tech people, they all get together and we figure out together what to do with crazy things like AI. There's also events. Now we're kind of running out of events here at the end of the year because I'm taking a nice long Christmas break, but there'll be lots of new ones coming. And Laura and I need to figure those out by the weekend so we can announce them to everybody. So lots of new free events, and they're every week, typically on a Thursday, sometimes live in person. I just was in Berlin and London and New York, but much more frequently here online, free and available all the time for anybody to come along and enjoy, just like this one. The one next week is on, apropos to the end of the year, setting up a 2025 plan and a strategy without a budget, because I don't think you need one. So if you're finding that provocative and interesting, go to the link on your screen and sign up. Thank you, Laura, for giving us a little preview of what's coming up, and I'm going to get started here. I'll just see if now, by the way, all of you just type stuff, and we got people from all around. Wonderful. If you want to ask questions as we go, please do. I love it when people interrupt with questions, and if you say, Squirrel, you're an idiot, I don't agree, or I have a different example, or how would that work for me, that makes me very happy. So please do that if you would like to, or you're very welcome to hang out and listen and privately say to yourself, Squirrel's got it wrong. Any of those are okay, but I love it if you share. And all of you had wonderful questions as you signed up for this, if you did. And so I've got a long list of questions to deal with. I'm not going to get to all of them, but Laura maintains that list on the forum, and I do my very best to get back to at least the most exciting questions for after each event, the ones that pique my interest and provoke me. And so you can check the forum afterwards if your question didn't get answered. You're always welcome to post it again and say, yo, Squirrel, you didn't answer my question. And I'm very happy to cover that. Or just type it in here. Perfect. Okay. Several people are not robots. Someone's not sure. Okay. Excellent. Oh, and Sylvain is here, and he's going to raise his hand if I talk too fast. Very good. We have people who don't necessarily speak English, and I'm a very fast English speaker, especially when I'm excited about a topic like this. So do wave your hand. Laura is also good at doing this. She's monitoring me, so she'll let me know if I go too fast too. Good stuff. Okay. So I want to know if any of you have ever eaten bacon ice cream. And for the non-English speakers, bacon is what you get when you kill a pig and you roast what you have, and you have little strips and you eat them at breakfast. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat bacon. I don't think many of you have probably eaten bacon ice cream. But you might have read a news story that said that McDonald's accidentally took orders for bacon ice cream. And how on earth did that happen? Well, it happened because they had artificial intelligence trials going. So when people would drive up to their local McDonald's and they would order not bacon ice cream, what would actually go through to the back, the kitchen where people were preparing it was, yo, we want 3 orders of bacon ice cream. Not a very good look, right? And so they withdrew their trial because they got too many crazy orders of things that didn't make sense. Somebody ordered 900 chicken nuggets, that kind of thing. And we all got used to this. And you might remember way back in the mists of time, 2023 seems like a million years ago in AI time, we were all very worried about hallucinations. If you didn't read this, go back and read it because it's the funniest thing ever. My wife thought I had lost my mind because I was just in this room just absolutely chortling. And what I was chortling at was Bing responding to a user, and Bing was convinced that the year was 2019 or something. Bing was confused about a fact about the calendar. And Bing was insisting, said, you are not being a good user. I'm being a good Bing. You should listen to me because I'm right about what year it is. And we all laughed at this stuff, right? And we thought, oh man, these robots, they're crazy. They're hallucinating all over the place. Guess what? You haven't heard that very much recently, have you? And if you're using an AI tool, and I use one all the time, it helps me a lot with my writing, to not to do the writing for me, we're going to cover that, but to help me with prompts and ideas and things that I might be missing, especially synonyms and stuff like that, to make my writing more interesting. I don't get any hallucinations. Now, you may still be, and I'd be really interested if you have a different experience. Put it in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. But the point is that what people have done in the past 6 months or so is less kind of massive leaps forward. It was astonishing in 2023 that a computer could talk to you. Somebody asked a question. They said, are we passing the Turing test now? If you don't know what that is, it's a famous test of whether computers are intelligent, and it involves talking back and forth, having a conversation. And this person, and we never thought you could do that in 2022. In 2023, we started to think maybe you could do that, but we laughed at it, right? In 2024, it's kind of normal. I was scrolling along, as you do on social media sometimes, and there was some kid who was saying, my teacher doesn't even know that I use ChatGPT to write my essay. Guess what? Your teacher does know, kid. But the point is, it's become normalized. Everybody first knows what it is, and the kids are all using it to write their essays. What do we do about that is another question, which is not our topic today. But here's my point. We were all very worried about hallucinations, and that wasn't the thing we should have been worried about. And I predicted this, that we would get stability, and that's what we've got in the last 6 months. Instead of huge leaps forward, it can converse with us, it can make videos, it can draw a picture for you that's halfway decent, it can do many more things. Those were the great sort of innovations of 2023. In 2024, we've done a lot more stability, and it's been less leaping forward and more, I can kind of make this work, and it won't make stupid mistakes. Now, that's a huge advance, but it does not erase the first law of AI. And the first law of AI is do not let your robot go on stage. On stage means where users can see it, your friends can see it, your audience can see it, whoever's important to you, and who might be thinking, you wrote this, and the AI has written something and you're putting it out to the world, or you've devised this, you've come up with this plan, you've developed this budget, you've made this document, whatever it might be you're asking the AI to do. Do not let it go directly on stage and communicate with humans. And the reason is not because it'll hallucinate. That's much less likely. We've just got very stable and we've improved the performance of these tools a lot. But the problem is it's boring as heck. It doesn't produce very good output, which is why that kid should not be surprised that the teacher actually knows that essay is not boring in the way normally, freshman essays are. It's boring in the way ChatGPT is, which is even more boring. And not only boring, just not very interesting, not very creative. What we've basically done is boil down all of the internet, which doesn't have great writing and material and thinking on it to start with. And we've said, okay, give me back a slurry made up of all of this stuff that we got from the internet. No surprise that it doesn't have tremendous value as it is. But here's what you should be doing with your robot. Your robot is a fantastic research assistant. And you should think of it like a junior person. You might hire, in bygone days, you might have hired somebody from the local university and handed them a box full of documents. And you say, find me all the documents in here that have some characteristic. Find me all the ones about Project Xanadu from 3 years ago, and find me all the ones that contain the budget, because we want to restart that. We want to understand the budget. But I don't even know what's in this box. So you go through and you find that stuff for me. And the junior person, the work experience student or somebody like that, that was a great job for them. I don't know what we're going to do to teach those people. That's another problem. Again, not today's topic. But that junior person would go through all that. It might take them a few days, but you didn't have to do it. And it was a pretty boring job. You could describe it clearly for them, and they could get the job done for you and give you the material that you needed. Out of a big mass of information, they could collate a little bit of it for you, summarize things, tell you what totals were, that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? Now you have a junior research assistant. You don't have to go to the local university. Your large language model can do that kind of research for you on whatever documents you want to throw at it. We can talk more about how to get those documents, their context windows and stuff like that. Ask me if you're not clear on how to do this. I'd love to talk more about it. But the basic idea is, and all your engineers know this if you don't, make the machine do the research, but then don't show its results, because its results are going to be boring and unclear. There are going to be little bits that don't make sense and extra bits that it throws in. You want to then take that and interpret it, and a human being then uses it to save a ton of time. And that's, for example, what software developers are doing now with ChatGPT and its friends, co-pilots, to help them write code. It doesn't write all the code. It writes a whole bunch of the code, the basic part, the simple part, the easy part, and then the human comes along and puts it together, adds bits, improves bits, and so on. I'm going to talk a lot more about how that works later on another law. But the primary feedback here, the main action for you is do not put the AI in charge of talking directly to users. Don't stick it on your website and have it talk back. Don't have it write a whole document for you that you're going to take to your board of directors. They'll sniff it out in a second. Don't have it produce a beautiful set of images which are, missing all the fingers and so on. It doesn't make so many of those mistakes, but it still has errors and problems even in its image creation, which make it very clear that you've used a tool for it and you haven't applied human creativity and human thinking. But it's great to feed you with lots of information, to feed people in your team with lots of information, to sort through lots of documents and to get the right information for you. That's how to think about it. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that, but we have some comments here. Sylvain had a great hallucination. It was translating some training from English to French. It translated, we need reliable delivery into in the name of Allah. Okay, that's definitely a hallucination. I'm not sure what Allah has to do with reliable delivery, although I'm sure the Prophet and Allah are very good at delivering things. That's probably not what Sylvain was trying to translate. So excellent example, but guess what? It doesn't do that so much anymore, right? We've stabilized it a lot. We're not getting so many kind of great leaps forward, but we've got a much more stable tool. That's what I'm experiencing. I wonder if anybody else has the same. Renee says, I use it to generate code snippets so that I can keep the focus on the bigger picture, architecture of the system. Exactly. And that applies in many places. If you're doing marketing, you don't want it to write your actual copy, but it would be great if it found the 17 different topics that you should write about that are interesting to your users or your customers today. So Renee's got exactly the right idea there. Don't waste brain power on figuring out exactly what to write. Precisely. Ed is using it to identify proverbs unique to a single language. Fascinating. We walk in the footsteps of tomorrow's children. I love that, Ed. That's fantastic. Okay, and ChatGPT or one of its friends that found that for you. That's wonderful. And a great example where Ed has gone through the Proverbs and probably checked them, right? It's probably got some crazy proverb that it made up, or it conflated, or it's, about Allah and it's not really from the Quran or something like that. And Ed has filtered that out. Perfect use of it for research, for stimulating ideas, for, I don't know what Ed's doing with that, but I think that's really cool. Jose is using Claude to generate questions for webinars. Fantastic. Does it better than he can, although he has to filter the results down. You guys are proving my point. I didn't pay these people to say this stuff, by the way. I promise. These are not robots. These are not sock puppets. This is real feedback from the real world. I'd love to hear somebody who disagrees, who says, yeah, I've got it writing sales emails, and, I'm making so much money. I've got it writing my tweets for me, and, I've got so many followers. Yeah, I don't know if do you get followers on X anymore? Is it all just Elon Musk? I'm not sure. But if you're using it in that way and it's working for you, I'd love to hear that, because that would be a great counterexample. But let me give you an example, because I've got a really good one of somebody applying this law really well. I've got a client. Can't quite say exactly what they do, but you'll get the idea. They have their customers have lots and lots of manuals. And these manuals say how to use stuff. And you can imagine it being like your microwave at home. It might not be that simple. It might be industrial and got a lot more characteristics. But basically, they've got complex equipment. They've got racks and racks and racks, rooms full of manuals that explain how these things work. Push the red button and you'll get this result. Push the blue button, you get that. But don't push the red and blue together or it'll blow up. That kind of thing is in the manual. But they got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of manuals. And they've digitized them often, but it's still very hard to find what you need and to remember that this is model number XQ12345. And so what they did is this company goes in, takes these digitized manuals, does not create a bot that then looks up the answer for you. I've got error 542. What should I do? That's the question you ask, but the large language model, ChatGPT, does not answer that question. What has happened instead is that separately, before you got to ask your question to help you with your big industrial machine to try to get it working, is that the company has gone and done all the analysis of the manuals using the large language model. So it's gone through all the documents, done all the research, been the research assistant, and it has developed draft trees. And these are called decision trees. It's a very standard thing. If you're in customer service, you know the kind of thing. Somebody phones up and says, error 542, and you say, have you tried turning it off and on again? Works remarkably often, right? That's the first step. Okay, I tried that. Is the red light on? Yes, the red light is on. Okay, is the purple button flashing? Okay, yes. So then I'm going to push the purple button, and that's what's going to reset the machine and get rid of error 542. And you have this kind of tree of things. Ask this. If yes, do this. If no, do that. And you get to some kind of solution, and you get, of course, the manual page that actually describes that. So the thing that you actually get when you go and interact with your system that's going to help you understand this is not the large language model. It's actually a dumb bot, the old kind that we used to have before all these crazy things. And it just follows the steps. It has no intelligence. It has no attempt to predict the next token, none of this kind of stuff. And it just follows the tree. But the tree has been developed and drafted by two groups. One is the large language model, and then some humans who are real experts. And they come along and they say, yeah, this tree's right, but we forgot to say that if it's Thursday, you don't push the blue button. On Thursdays, you push the red button. And if the moon is full, then you push these two buttons instead. So those humans know things that maybe aren't in the manual or aren't very clear, or that somebody has more information about that the machine does not. The machine hasn't got that right. So we're doing two things together. We're using the large language model to get the bulk of the work done. And it's just like these examples that folks were very helpfully putting in the chat here. And once it's got that bulk of the work done, you have some humans come along and check it. And the humans make sure that it's right. And then what's on stage, what's actually interacting with your users, is not the bot, because it might tell you to push the wrong button and the machine stops working, right? We don't want that. We want the humans to check it. But it's so much less work for the humans to check something that's been drafted than it is to go through all those manuals, get all the details, try to look everything up and build it themselves. So it saves a huge amount of time, and it's a hugely profitable business for them. So I wanted you to have that example of law number one. Law number one, to summarize, is do not let your bot go on stage. make sure it stays off stage, out of sight, out of mind. Your customers do not see it. Okay. Questions are welcome. Please throw them in here, especially if you disagree. I would love to hear them, but I'm going to move on to law number 2. Now, law number 2 is about a very different area, and it's one that a lot of folks have kind of forgotten about. Lawyers are still thinking about this one. This is a legal issue. And I was advising a very large private equity company. They own loads and loads of companies all around the world, and they're thinking about adopting some tools like this to help all those companies run better. Great idea, high leverage, really good opportunities in these businesses. The type of businesses they work with would really benefit from AI tools. And I said, you got to check with legal, because you're a big enough target, somebody's going to care. Now, that kid who's writing his essay, nobody's going to sue him for having a little bit of somebody else's work in his essay. The teacher might catch him, and he might get in trouble with his teacher. That's a different problem for him. For you, if you have information, if you have data, if you have text in whatever the machine has produced for you, and you don't own it, you could have a big problem. And so one of the things I'm telling my client here is make sure you check that you're indemnified. For example, Microsoft has what they claim is a good, solid indemnification, but I'm not a lawyer. And it says, look, if you get sued for anything you get from Microsoft Copilot, used in Microsoft Word and Outlook and other things where it kind of prompts you for what to put in your email or your document. If you get sued for using some of that, don't worry, we'll step in. They can sue Microsoft instead. Now, I don't know how Microsoft's lawyers got away with that. I don't know what their insurance company thinks of that. But if that stands up, and I can't tell you whether it does, I'm not a lawyer, if that stands up, you're good. If you're using Microsoft's tools and that indemnification applies to you. If you're not, if you're using something else, maybe you're rolling your own, you've downloaded Claude. Somebody was mentioning using Claude. That's an open source tool that you might download and run yourself. There's Llama and others. I don't think you have that kind of indemnification. If you're playing around, you're trying stuff out, you're having a good time working it out yourself, probably safe. But if you're using it in production with real users, if you're producing real documents, real data, if you're producing content on your website, if you're sending out loads of emails, you could be in trouble. So law number 2 says you might not own what your bot produces. So check it out. Make sure that you are really safe and whatever you produce, you actually own. Right. Jose says, seems to be the trend to combine the models as part of a larger process. Jose is exactly right. In fact, when you talk to any of these online, I pick up my phone and I go to ChatGPT on here, and I ask it a question for a synonym or something. What actually happens is there's several models, and they all collaborate. And I don't see any of that. All I see is one response, but it's like a little committee. And one says, I think the answer is 12, and somebody else says, I think the answer is the kingdom of Benin. And one of them says, Squirrel was asking a question about mathematics. I think it's probably 12. And they give me the answer 12. So there's a whole sort of cabal, sort of little committee that's actually answering your questions. And that's one of the things that has led to the greater stability. That's why you're getting fewer hallucinations, because these things are checking each other. The folks who make this stuff are pretty clever, right? And you can benefit from that by using it really just through the ordinary interface. You don't need to know exactly how they're doing that, but it is useful to know that they're combining the information that's leading to the greater stability. Big cognitive adjustment. What meta advice for people who want to get their heads around this? My meta advice, Jose, is don't worry about it. Let the folks who are building these things build them in the best way to give you the most meaningful results. They're doing pretty well so far. Don't necessarily trust any individual one. You might want to try, what does Claude say? What does OpenAI say? What does Meta's tool? What does Gemini say? You could check with different ones to see which one's providing the best results. But, Jose, you probably don't worry about, I hope you don't worry about the details of what goes into your car and exactly how the carburetor is constructed and whether there's fuel injection or something else. At least I don't worry about that stuff, because I figure that whoever's making it is going to make it so that when I push down on the gas pedal, I go somewhere. And I would suggest you do the same, because if you want to get into that stuff, it's great. You could be a very highly paid engineer doing that. There's not that many of us who are going to be able to do that. and there's not that many slots for people to do it. There's an awful lot of places where using these tools can be more successful. It's better to think, gosh, have I got the right steering wheel, gas pedals? Have I got the right map that's going to take me? Have I got my GPS program to take me the right place? Rather than worrying about, have I tuned the spark plugs in exactly the right way? You can tell how much I know about cars. So, Jose, that's my recommendation. You might disagree with me. I'd love to hear more from you. So let me know. Great question. Thank you. Okay, so I've done 2 of the laws of AI. I'm going to spend a long time on questions here, so I'm not going anywhere. But I've got you through 2 of the main laws, and I'm going to get to the 3rd one now. And the 3rd one is trust but verify. Now, when I tell you this law, I'm actually quoting a Russian proverb, but I'm not quoting it directly. Hey, back to Ed's Proverbs. I don't know if this proverb exists in other languages. You could check that out for me. I'd be interested. But I know it's a Russian proverb, and I know that because of my old friend Ronald Reagan. Now, Mr. Reagan, you might remember. Some of you are not old enough. Don't make me feel old. You won't remember him, but you might read in history books that he went off to Russia to agree in a nuclear reduction treaty, right? Fewer missiles. Sounds good. We want that. And he went to meet his old friend, Mr. Gorbachev. And he said, now, Mr. Gorbachev, I'm going to quote a Russian proverb to you. We're going to trust you on these nuclear missiles that you're going to get rid of, but verify. And what he meant by trust but verify is that he was going to believe that the Russians would do it, but he's also going to run around and make sure that's actually true. That what the Russians did was actually not just move the missiles from one place to another, but actually dismantle them. And of course, he wanted them to do the same with the Americans. Now, whether or not that actually worked for nuclear missiles, it works very, very well for artificial intelligence. And let me tell you a story about that. And if it's reminiscent of the first law, that's because these are closely related. Second law is a little bit different. But the story here is about chess. Now, some of you might know that right now there's the World Chess Championship match happening between Mr. Gukesh and Mr. Ding, and they're playing each other, and they don't seem to be able to win yet. They're tied up, and it's a very exciting match, almost equal between the 2 of them. But they are not the best chess players on the planet. There's actually another chess player who's better, who doesn't feel like playing. His name is Magnus Carlsen. He was world champion for a while and he got bored, so he's not playing. He's not the best world chess player on the planet. The best chess player on the planet is not a large language model. It's just an ordinary computer, and it could be your computer, your phone, running a certain computer program, and that program is so much better than human beings that it will beat all of those people 100-0, right? 100 games, it'll win against all of the chess masters in the entire world. And that's running on your phone. So that's how sort of fast and sort of efficient and effective chess computers have got. I remember when they were very slow and inefficient and not very good, but they've got much, much better. Now, there's an interesting thing about what happened in chess. You might have thought nobody will play chess anymore. Computers can beat them. No. It's fun for people to play each other and to see if they can beat each other, just like human beings have foot races. Usain Bolt runs fast. A car could beat him in a second, right? The car is much faster. But we're still interested in what the human can do. So human beings still play chess tournaments. But they had very interesting types of chess tournaments, which were called centaur tournaments. And that's Centaur. And you might remember that's a mythical beast from Greek mythology who is half human and half horse. So the top half is a human and the bottom half is a horse. You might have seen these in Harry Potter, for example, if you remember that. And the centaur in chess terms is a human plus a computer. So the chess computer grinds away and does all kinds of incredibly fast work to work out what the best move is and why you should play it and so on. But the human being says, I got a clever idea. I want to try this. And the chess computer says, no, that won't work on move 42. You're going to get checkmated. And the human says, oh, yeah, but what if we did it this way? And the computer says, yeah, actually, that would work. That's got a score of 93 to 93%. You've got a good idea there. Try it. And what happens is that if you get these centaurs playing against both humans and computers, the centaurs win. And that's because the human has creative ideas. Human has helpful notions and also checks what the computer is doing. The computer comes up with something that would work, but isn't quite the right idea for the position, isn't got quite the understanding that the human grandmaster has. And so the human trusts but verifies, says, okay, you do all the work, But then, okay, I'm going to pick among the different things that you chose, and I'm going to pick the one that will work best against this opponent at this time in this match. And they cleaned up the computers and the humans. The centaurs together would win when they played either against humans or computers. Now, I do have to give you the coda to this story, the epilogue, which is that in recent years, they've stopped having these tournaments. And the reason they've stopped having these tournaments is the chess computers got even better. And now the computers beat the centaurs because the human isn't smart enough to come up with something better than the computer. So maybe in a few years, we're going to be in the same state with these large language models, but we're definitely not there now. So my recommendation to you to apply law number 3 is to make sure you have a human in the loop. And that's closely related to number 1, right? I said keep the bot off stage. But whatever you're using it for, make sure you have humans and computers operating together, operating as centaurs, and helping each other to get the best results. Whether you're off stage or on stage, that's the difference. Now, we have a couple comments here. I want to check on those. Oh, Ed's checked my proverb, my Russian proverb, equivalence in many languages. Thanks you. The Arabic one is doubt is the mother of safety. Ed, you're tremendously giving me all this great language stuff. Ed, you got to tell me, maybe post on the forum. Why are you doing this proverb research? It's really fascinating. Not going to be our topic today, but Ed, I'd love to hear from you. Write me an email or put it, even better, put it up on the forum. I'm really curious what you're doing, why you're using large language models to do it. It's a fascinating application. But let me carry on with this notion of trust, but verify, and give you another software example. This is another client of mine who is using computer vision. Another example of these kind of models. It's not focused on language this time. It's focused on detecting things, looking at things in the world, and taking a camera or a picture or a video camera and looking at them and detecting stuff, using the same kinds of tools and methods that ChatGPT and its friends do, but looking at pixels instead of words. Now, what the area they're in is construction. So what they're working hard on is making sure that when you build a skyscraper, the skyscraper is actually built correctly. And there's lots of mistakes you can make, and people make them all over the place when you're building some giant block of flats or building full of offices, and, you know, the funny shapes that they make to make them very exciting. There's crazy ones in Dubai, and, you know, that are very narrow and so on. When they're building those, they make mistakes like they'll put up a sprinkler and then they'll put drywall on top of the sprinkler. That's not a very good sprinkler, right? That's not going to create much water. It's just gonna, if you're burning up, you want a sprinkler that's on the outside, right? That you can actually see that will spray water on you. So they want to detect these things. And the old way was to send an expert around, and the expert would go look in every single room very carefully and would miss a bunch of things because they're human, but would try very hard to look for all the kinds of mistakes that you might make in putting together loads and loads of very similar rooms in a skyscraper. These guys had a better idea. They said, what we'll do is we'll send a dumb person around, or at least not a very skilled person, whose job is just to take a lot of photographs. Just photograph everything. Don't worry about what you've pointed at. Just point it at everything and make sure you get lots and lots of photographs of the current state of the skyscraper. You know, we're building floor 63 and we're fitting out floor 62, and floor 61 is having its final quality checks. And we go around and we photograph everything in all those rooms. Then you have a machine learning model go and look at all the photographs. You might have thousands and thousands of photographs. And because it's a very good research assistant, as we were talking about before, what it can do is rapidly detect anomalies, things that look funny. And one thing that might look funny is you've got some drywall here and it has a funny bump in it. And the bump is right where a sprinkler should be. And you've trained the model to look for that kind of stuff. Just like we have models that look for, stop signs. You do the CAPTCHAs and things like that. It has you look out for stop signs. You're training a model then, if you didn't know that. You're helping Google and its friends to go and help large language models, machine learning models, to understand pictures better because you're labeling them. And so they've done all that labeling. They've done all that analysis. And so the machine can find a bunch of anomalies. Now, sometimes there's just a shadow on the wall. And so it looks funny, but it's fine. That's okay. The model still, it's tuned to say more, hey, this looks funny. Let's get a human. But you might have 10,000 photographs and 200 anomalies. What a saving, right? That's fantastic. Because then what they do is they ship it off to some architects in actually a distant country where things are a little bit cheaper, so they don't have to pay them as much. Certainly don't have to fly them to wherever the skyscraper is, as they would have before. And these architects who are real experts, they know everything about what should be where and how it should look. They go through not the 10,000 photographs, not by walking through and looking around. They look at the 200 anomalies. They go, okay, wait a minute, sprinkler's in the wrong place. Wait a minute, here you've installed the door upside down. This is not going to work. You're not going to get pass inspection here. Go and fix that. Room 627 on floor 65, that sort of thing. And so when they find those problems, they're doing it much more efficiently. They're doing it much faster, and they have a much lower error rate because the computer is making sure not to miss anything, finds all the anomalies, and it hands it to the people. We're trusting the computer to find the anomalies, but verify, look at the anomalies, and do something with it. That's the model you should be looking for in your customer service, in your sales, if you're sending out sales emails, in your marketing, if you're using it to create content. You want to make sure that you're looking at what the machine creates, trust it to do a reasonable job, but then verify that the output is what you want. That's the third law of AI. Okay, Renee has a question. I think I can put Renee's question up. Let's see, look at that, just like I knew what I was doing. What do you think about putting AI center stage in cars? E.g., full self-driving phantasmagoria. Oh, great. Now I can go on about this for a while. I'll do a brief version, but Renee, if you want more, or other people want more, ask. And you're also welcome to ask on the forum. I've pontificated about this a bit before. So the problem with things like Tesla's full self-driving is twofold. One is it's really not quite there. So there are real problems if you look at Waymo and other tools. They've got them doing taxis in Phoenix and some other things like that. These trials are okay. The machine isn't terrible, but it does funny stuff like stop in the middle of the road. And there's lots of suspicion, I think the suspicion is probably right, that there's some operators in a faraway country, think of those architects, right, in the skyscraper example, and those operators are watching and they kind of step in and they actually drive the car remotely when it has a problem. And how often that happens, how much that's really going on, not clear. Mr. Musk, of course, would like you to just turn on full self-driving on your Tesla and just go zooming off. And that might be great, except for the times when the Tesla does get in trouble. And there have been some spectacular accidents and problems, and people have been killed trying to do that because the machine can't handle the exceptions. And one exception I remember is there was a police car, I think it was, and it was parked across the motorway. So people are going zooming along 70 miles an hour. There's a police car there. And the machine just isn't trained on that. There aren't very many examples of that happening. It's like what happens when you ask, I've asked Dolly and its friends in the Midjourney and so on to draw me pictures of centaurs, because of course I want to illustrate my centaur example from chess. There aren't that many examples, so it really struggles to create a half horse, half human. It's pretty good at horses. It's pretty good at humans, both together. Not so good. There are not so many examples. It doesn't matter so much when I want a cheap picture and I can't draw. It does matter an awful lot when you're driving down the road and there's a police car there. And of course, what happened is it thought that everything was fine and it just went plowing into the police car. Not very good. So that's one problem, is that it's really not quite ready. And people like Mr. Musk are not doing us any favors by claiming it is. We haven't tested it enough. And there's not enough opportunity to trust but verify. Of course, those problems also happen when people didn't do enough verifying by keeping their hands on the wheel and their eyes on the road. They're like playing a video game or something. And guess what? What happens when you do that is you crash your car. So that's one of the problems. But there's another one, which is eventually we're going to stabilize this stuff. Just like we stabilized large language models, we don't have so much bacon ice cream. Where, my example from the start, we don't have that many hallucinations, that many weird examples. We're going to get this stuff right in the next few years. I still do not think that my wife is going to climb. My wife is blind, by the way. That she's going to climb into a car and it's going to take her off to the doctor or to see her friend. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And the reason is a political one. The political one is that we kind of trust humans to do things, even though our trust is misplaced. Humans get drunk. Humans are distracted. Humans sometimes are self-destructive. Humans do crazy things in cars all the time. But when a machine does it, we're scared of that. And so politically, these kind of accidents, these kinds of problems get magnified. And so I think it'll take quite some time and frankly, a lot of people to age out of the population before enough people are comfortable and can say, yeah, actually, it's okay. The machine is now stable enough and it's not killing any more people than humans. In fact, it's a lot safer. When it does, it causes a lot of problems, but I can deal with that. The same thing happened when cars came in, originally cars that were driven by humans. If you look up the history, you used to have a person walk along in front of the car with a flag saying, hey, automobile coming, look out, there's a car behind me. Awfully slow, not very efficient. It was because people were afraid. And we've learned and we've kind of got used to the idea that cars will drive around and they'll be driven by humans. We're going to need a similar amount of adjustment to get used to the idea, once it is stable, which it is not now, that machines can drive the cars, and that's actually safe and a good idea, safer than humans once it is, which it isn't right now. Renee, I can pontificate about this for a long time. It's a great question. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Sam says, hi, I loved working with you. I did too, Sam. Nice to see you. Simon points out a very important point. He says, it's not hack proof. There are people who are going to get in there and cause problems. I'm waiting for a terrorist incident, actually. This is very sad to say. I hope this doesn't happen, but I will be surprised if it doesn't somewhere. If there are operators who are driving these machines, I was referring to this before, I'm pretty sure that that's what's happening in these Waymo machines and so on. If operators, real people who work for the company, can get in, so can hackers, so can bad people who are up to no good. And there might be people who are just doing something for fun. They want to make some mischief and cause trouble. There might also be some people who have some very negative intentions, and that could be a real problem. So I'm quite worried about that. We do not have good enough security on our software that drives cars and does other dangerous things to prevent some of these bad uses. So I agree with Simon. This is one to be concerned about. One of my favorite examples, terrifying example, is that if you do the right things to a picture, you can look this up if you want to. I won't try to show you an example. Simon will know this really well, as some of you will. If you make a picture that is a bunch of kind of scribbled lines all over the place, if you pick just the right picture, you can convince one of these models that that's actually a cat. And you'll show it this picture that's just a bunch of lines. It looks like one of these modern art things where someone threw the paint at the canvas. And you look at it, doesn't look like a cat to you, but the machine has been trained in such a way that that particular input is put in the category, this is a cat. Now that's okay if you just want to identify cats, not so bad, but real problem if you're going to try to identify stop signs or traffic flow or speed limit signs. And I'm imagining that some people are going to put these up somewhere and see what happens. And cars will be fooled into thinking the speed limit is 1,000 miles an hour, or you turn right into the ocean to take a shortcut to your next location. And if you're trusting your computer and you're not verifying that it's taking your car in the right place or driving appropriately, I think you could have some real problems. You could have a very bad day. And I don't know how much protection we have against this. Not very good is what I suspect. So Simon, a good sobering thought, very much appreciated. Now I'm going to turn to some of the questions that we got beforehand. And there are loads and loads of these. I'm not going to get to everything, but I'll get to what I can because there's some really provocative ones in here. Let's see. Many thoughts about what AI could do. This is from Richard, by the way. Hi, Richard. Many thoughts about what AI could do, less thoughts about what we actually see it doing. Well, this is the example with the car driving, right? Is we got this fantasy that cars are going to drive themselves everywhere. My wife will get in a car and go anywhere she wants. I want that, believe me. Real, actual AIs, things that actually drive cars, they aren't there yet. So I agree with Richard that this is a danger today, that people get overhyped, overexcited. And the question always to ask is, what does it actually do? Richard asked this very poignant question, very, very well put. When talking about the futures, many estimations are taken out of thin air. How should we frame such conversations? Well, let me give you an example that goes directly to your point about grounded conversations, having information that we can really use. I've got another client also in computer vision. I do a lot of this stuff, so it's a lot of fun to learn about it. And this particular client does, again, I have to obscure them a little bit. What they do is use computer vision for safety. So they're looking at pieces of information, just like the architect in the skyscraper example is looking at information about the room. These folks are looking at different information. I can't say what it is. And that information has safety implications. In the case of the skyscraper, somebody says, oh, I put the sprinkler in wrong. It's expensive to fix it. So there's a cost in terms of dollars. In these guys' case, it's a cost in terms of lives, right? So somebody might die as a result of not having an alert based on a picture that's coming in. because this safety tool actually gives you warnings and alerts and says, hey, look out, dangerous situation here. Good, we want that to happen. And we'd sure love some computer assistance. That would be a good thing to have. But the problem is there wasn't enough verification going on. There was a lot of trust and not enough verification. And I came in to review and I said, folks, it's not clear to me which things actually work. What's actually working here? What can we alert on? What can't we? What's at the boundary? And there was a real disparity. Engineers thought that a certain number of things actually worked. And the salespeople and the board of directors and the CEO thought a whole lot more was ready. So they thought, it can, if it were a car, you might think, oh yes, this thing can drive 1,000 miles on a half a gallon of fuel, and it's perfectly safe. And the engineers were saying, yeah, it's actually not got all that. It's pretty good, but it ain't that good. And as I went and looked into it, what I found was there were actual videos that were being used as input to tests. So they had videos that had possible safety issues in them, and they would feed it to the computer and say, hey, go beep if there's a safety issue. And for certain videos it would, and certain videos it wouldn't. And you use those pictures, that data, to verify that your machine was running correctly, that it was actually detecting the safety issues that it was supposed to. Well, the problem is they actually went and ran the tests for me, and they looked at it and they said, some of these, it actually doesn't do that. And as we dug into it, we found that there were videos and tests and things that did the verification of part of trust but verify, but they were only for some of the features. They weren't for everything. And some of the cool features that people were off selling and using and making use of, those features were not actually there. And so that caused a bit of a kerfuffle, as you can imagine. But the really good news that I had at the end was that what they did have, the safety features they did provide, were really valuable. So what they needed to do was actually do more verification so they knew what they had that was valuable really was there. But the good news for the company is, hey, boy, this stuff looks great. It really does improve safety. It's good. Just don't believe that it does a whole bunch more things, which is where they kind of got themselves crossed up. They believed in the kind of future, as Richard was referring to. They were believing in what could be, and that was a great thing to believe in, but you don't want to kind of go off and sell that to customers, which is what happened here. So I had to help them understand, and looking at the videos was a great way to do it. These things actually work. These things don't. We can work on these ones, but they ain't there yet. And boy, this stuff is really valuable. So Richard, great question, great point. And it's the sort of thing we ought to be watching out for. What can you trust but verify? What can you look at to prove that what you're looking at actually works? The videos in my example. Great. Let's see. Kat wants to know how do you think the software developer's job description will change in the future after so much piloting? Well, I don't know that piloting's the important part. The important part is you can save an awful lot of time when you're writing computer programs. And, I've written a few little scripts and things that do things for me, and I didn't have to write any lines of code. I asked a computer to do the work for me. I checked it, trust but verify. I'm a centaur here. I'm verifying that I have the right output. I tested it on a few examples, and I said, hey, this works. And now it does some updates on my website for me. There's lots of those examples, and I think that's what's mainly going to change. My prediction for 2025 in this area is that junior developers are going to be in a lot of trouble because they're just not needed as much. That doesn't mean we don't need them. We didn't get rid of all of them. We're never going to have them. But senior developers can get a junior developer, actually now a large language model, ChatGPT or something like it, to go and do some of the grunt work, to get the first version of the code ready, to get the fundamentals, to get 95% of the work done, to get the basic integrations done. And once they've done that, the senior engineer adds a load of value on top. Senior engineers are okay. But if you've got lots and lots of junior engineers in your organization, first of all, you've probably got a problem, because I never recommend that you front load or overload on junior engineers. But also, you should be looking at replacing them with a much smaller number of senior folks, because those senior folks are going to be able to use the tools, both humans, junior developers, and machines, large language models, to do a lot of the work for them. And so we're going to have a lot of automation that makes this job simpler, but not get rid of it. So, Kat, I hope that helps with your question. I'd love more comments and questions, especially from folks who are facing that problem right now as you come up to 2025 and you think, how many engineers am I actually going to hire? Think about 2 seniors instead of 8 juniors. You're going to be able to get a lot more leverage out of them. Right. Rob says, great question. I love Rob's question. As a matter of fact, I might try to put it up on the screen because it's so good. Rob, thank you so much for a really sort of capturing the tenor of the times here. Let me get this one up. Rob, so just have to wait for it to come through. There we go. So Rob says, it's not me, it's Rob, says, I want AI to make my applications better for users. Is that a realistic desire? Great question. Rob, there's kind of a twofold answer to this. The first is you can get a long way with having AI help improve itself, with giving it better prompts, with kind of having a very fast feedback loop where somebody can says, oh, change this, move this, do this differently. There are lots of tools to help you do that. And they're getting better and better, and they're even more accessible and easy to use as every day passes. So in that sense, you can get around a lot of iterations. Yes, okay, I want my applications better for the users. Let's try removing one click. So instead of clicking 4 times, we're going to click 3 times. Oh, no, darn, that doesn't quite work so well because we lost this kind of functionality. We lost this piece of this option that we had. Okay, we'll go back to how we were, but okay, now try adding this new step or try changing it this way or having this new validation. And now you have to be trusting and verifying at every stage, make sure that you haven't made things worse. But you can often get around that kind of loop very quickly and efficiently, and therefore improve the applications very fast too. So that is definitely a realistic desire, Rob. The problem is we're not quite there. So if you just fire up ChatGPT and you know nothing about it and you're not an expert in that area, getting it right and really making improvements is still a little bit beyond the average ordinary user who's not an expert. But it's getting closer and closer every day. I was just seeing a demo of an AI tool that's designed for people who are building very basic software, kind of stuff that you might, with one step up from Wix or Squarespace. You want to have a website, you want to take some payments, and you want to do a few extra things. You want to make it a little better, but you're not trying to build a cryptocurrency exchange that does a whole bunch of fancy analysis or something. You're not trying to do something cutting edge. You're building an application that does some reports based on some data, based on what some users have sent you, and maybe take some payments or move some money around. You're doing something pretty basic, and this thing can do an awful lot of it for you without any code. So you can say, I want to adjust this, I want to move this on this screen, I want to add a new column to the report, I'd like to record this new piece of information. Makes a lot of the changes for you. You still need trust but verify, you still need a senior person in there. Always have a human in the loop. Don't put the bot on the stage or let that code get out for people to actually use without a human. But Rob, you can get a long way these days with human help, and pretty soon you may not need much. There was one other thing that we had on the forum this morning. There's actually a way for you to play Minecraft. Sounds like loads of fun, but it's not actually playing. There's no game engine. There's no actual keeping track of where a block is or where the tree is that's on the screen. It's all generated by a model that's taking what it's looking at now, the input that you just gave it, and makes the new picture for you in real time. Look on the forum for this. This is Oasis, I think is the name of it. Now, this is kind of a toy. You could just go play Minecraft. Why would you need this? But the point is that you can then say, I want to play Minecraft underwater. I want to play Minecraft on the moon. I want to play Minecraft, but I want it more like Call of Duty. And so you can do all kinds of modifications to these things. Eventually, it's not quite there yet. But when you can do that with your applications, we're not now playing Minecraft, but we're creating new reports. We're creating new analyses. We're creating new products. And that's what our applications can be doing. And we were not that far off from saying, I'd like a enterprise research planning system that interfaces with these 3 financial systems and is particularly tuned for managing widgets. And by the way, I also have 3 suppliers I want to integrate with. Now, it won't build all of that for you. We're not at the point where that can happen. But you don't need a lot more than that, plus some smart humans, a small number of senior humans, to get something like that and make very fast iterations. And if you guys know anything about me, I love fast iterations. That's what Elephant Carpaccio is all about. So, Rob, thanks for a fantastic question. Really opened it up for some possibilities there. We're not there yet, but your desire absolutely is realistic. I hope that's helpful. Simon says, and Simon's very smart about this stuff, AI-based QA can help deliver better experiences today. He's absolutely right. You have to be careful. Humans in the loop. I'm saying the same thing, but that's because it's so important. But maybe we'll close with this because it's such a great example, and I didn't get to so many questions. I'll try to answer them on the forum. But what Simon is saying here is that if you want to test your software, one way is to laboriously sit down and do all the research work to figure out how could it break. Well, I could click this and then that, or I could click this and then that, or I could click both of them together, or I could click them in rapid succession. Here are all the things I could do to break this software. And there are some brilliant people who are really good at breaking software. I had one person who worked for me, the very first QA I ever hired. She was brilliant. Her screensaver said, if it ain't broke, break it. She was really good at coming up with crazy stuff that I would never have thought of to break the software I'd just written. AI is also good at doing the bulk of that. So it can come up with all kinds of test cases that are fairly realistic, that are actually interesting, that are ready to run, and that you will find, have a handful of those test cases you didn't think of, and they're actually going to fail in production. And your AI found that for you. Hallelujah, right? And you can do that right today. There's nothing wrong with saying, give me a suite of test cases. Let's run those test cases and find out whether this code I just wrote, maybe with the help of a copilot, actually passes the tests. Will it run? But I still want a human. I still want that person with the screensaver that says, if it ain't broke, break it, because she'll think up stuff the computer won't. She's a centaur, and she can come up with additional test cases, train the developers to think of those test cases, maybe even train the AI to come up with them. And when you have that in your arsenal, you have that centaur working together, the computer and the human coming up with your test cases, that can really deliver some very significant software improvements, some quality improvement that's really valuable. Simon, thank you for pointing that out. That's a really good place for us to close. Let me suggest this. Tons of questions, like pages and pages of questions from you guys, which I really appreciate. I'm going to get to what I can on the forum, but I would love for you to highlight some more for me and bug me to answer them, right? Feel free to say, yo, Squirrel, you didn't answer my question. And let's try to get our brains around this brave new world. It's not as amazing as we thought. It's not going to solve the world's problems, not going to get rid of world hunger. But man, it can do some pretty cool stuff if used in accordance with the 3 laws. And let me close with what those are. The first is, don't let your bot on stage. Make sure you keep the computer off stage. Don't let it talk to humans. Use it as a research assistant. Second is, make sure that you check that you own whatever the machine produced for you. You may not own it. There's legal challenges. Get legal involved. And the bigger you are, the bigger target you are, the more important that is. And the third is, trust but verify. Machine produces lots of good results, less hallucination these days, but still boring, incorrect, confusing. It's not ready for prime time. It may be eventually. I'll tell you when I see that, and you guys can disagree with me. But I don't see that yet. I'm still telling my clients, keep it off stage, trust but verify, make sure that you're getting the right outputs, and make sure that there's a centaur involved. Humans plus computers. That's the way forward. Folks, it's fantastic. I love all the response. People have great questions. Please continue on the forum, ask more questions, do more debating. That's where we go in the Squirrel Squadron. And I'd love to see you next week when we're talking about tech strategy without a budget. How on earth can that work? Get rid of your budget. Wouldn't that be fun? Let's talk about it next week on our next free live stream here at the Squirrel Squadron. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day. See you next week or on the forum.